Welcome back to Mark Holowitz Vlog, everyone. Thanks for joining in. Hey, it's been a really hectic couple of weeks, and part of the reason for that is because I've got the Lamborghini Gallardo here up for sale. I've had it now for a couple of weeks. There's been a whole lot of interesting conversations, people visiting to look at the car, lots of phone calls, lots of tire kickers, and I just thought it fitting that I explain what some of that was all about. And if you've ever been trying to sell a car, I'm sure you can probably appreciate, and now especially with what's going on in today's world, it adds another dimension. So I've owned the car for 6 years, and I'm going to share later in the video here about what this car has actually cost me in a 6-year time frame. Now, I've done some upgrades, some mods, as well as a lot of maintenance. And I want to share that with you guys because if you've been ever considering buying a Lamborghini Gallardo, you're definitely going to want to find out how much that's going to cost you. On top of me sharing you the total value and cost per year and some of the stories about some of the tire kickers with this car, I also want to show if the Lambo does not sell, it's still fine. I mean, I'm looking at an upgrade, but if it doesn't sell, it's still an amazing car and still with some of the best sounds. So if I don't sell it, it's still a win. If I sell it, it's a win. I feel like you can't lose either way. However, if I do keep the car, and I'm kind of on the fence now because some of the responses I've had have been kind of questionable. So if I do keep the car, number one, I'm going to do this. You see this? This is a package of tire stickers because if you look here, you look down at the tires, you'll notice it looks great. However, it is kind of dark, and from a distance, it doesn't have enough contrast. And you got the white car with the dark windows, and of course, this all black. I mean, I had to add these little stickers in here already to give it a little bit of extra dimension, but I do feel that these tire stickers might be in order. So I purchased these stickers from eBay. They're not all that expensive. The only problem is where they're shipped from, they couldn't transport the glue, so I got to go head down, pick up some glue for this, and so I can maybe get started. And hopefully I get them done closer to the end of the video. Maybe I can review them, maybe I won't, we'll see. But not only that, I may actually add a Superleggera wing, and that should just cap it all off. Maybe look at a front spoiler. I'd like to do some carbon fiber because I think carbon fiber really livens up the car, maybe both on the exterior as well as the interior of the car. If I keep it, I'm definitely going to be doing some things, some upgrades and some project work. One thing right now I'm hesitating on is the cats. I know I've heard a lot of people talk about the catalytic converters sometimes breaking down in these. Not sure. I talked to my mechanic and there hasn't been a whole lot of localized conversation around that, so I'm not sure yet if I'm going to do anything with that because I still like original catalytic converters. I don't like codes, and I just want to keep it as simple as possible. So first of all, I learned a few things here when you're trying to list your supercar on the private market. Number one, you're basically going to deal with a whole lot of tire kickers. Probably a lot of people that don't have money. I can't tell you how many yo-yos reached out and said, hey, I'll give you 80 grand for it. Well, you haven't seen the damn car, so why would you even offer anything? Maybe it doesn't even have an engine in it. So why would you offer a dime? So anybody that's offering you 70, 80, 90 grand, I don't care. They can offer you what you're asking for your car. If they haven't come to see it, either A, they have nothing to lose, or B, they're just kicking tires, and they're pretty much pointless. I'm starting to ignore all those clowns, and it's just time to really deal with the people that are willing to come and talk to you face to face. And that brings us to this whole situation, wearing masks. Obviously, always be aware and be cautious if you're dealing with people face to face for obvious reasons. With this world crisis that we have, we don't need to make things a lot any worse. Second of all, I want to share with you some of the specific stories of people that came. Now, first of all, one of the first guys that actually came recently, and it was probably, again, about 2 weeks ago, there was a guy that decided he wanted to come take a closer look at the car. I felt like he was a bit of a tire kicker. He said he was serious, but he kept comparing and saying, well, I'm looking at maybe buying a Gallardo or maybe an early 360 or a 355 Ferrari. Well, in my mind, that's already telling me something, because if he's looking at $90,000 Canadian dollar Ferraris, like a 355, then chances are, you know, this might be a little more. And honestly, it's not even in the same league, in my opinion. Now, a 430 Ferrari, sure. If he said, hey, you know what, I'd buy a 430 or a Gallardo, I'm kind of looking at both, it would be more believable. But the fact was he's comparing a Gallardo with what appears to be his budget in that 355 and early 360 coupe or Modena range, which tells me he's probably not really that serious. And certainly it seemed like he was ready and willing for a great deal. And if he didn't get it, then he was willing to walk away. So the first thing I got to say is he was looking it around. He did the usual checks. He didn't really have a whole lot, you know, was looking it up and down, and that's typical. But this guy did some old school thing to me, and I just flinched when he did it. Do you remember back in the days, the old mechanics? used to do that old trick where they'd lean on the bumper of a vehicle and they'd push down on it? Well, let me give you a little bit of a demo what this guy did. So you know what this guy does? He literally leans on my fender here and he's yarding on it and he's pretty much jumping on it on his weight and he's pushing down on my fender. And all I can help but think is, hey buddy, that's probably a $10,000 repair if you bend the fender and I got to repaint it or replace it. And I was just flinching, and the only reason I didn't even go there and really get excited about it was because there's a possibility, I thought at that point, that he might still buy the car. And quite frankly, it didn't end up that way. So that was one thing. Honestly, guys, when you're selling these cars, you got to watch out for these yo-yos. You can't treat a car, a Ferrari, Lamborghini, when body panels, fenders can cost more than the GDP of small countries. And honestly, that just put me over the edge. So I was really, really nervous when he did that. And he did it on both sides. And actually, the one fender looked like it flexed a little bit. But I think they might be a plastic fender, so it came back like there was no issue at the end of the day. But who would do that? I wouldn't even think about doing that to somebody else's car. Why would you? If you're worried about the condition of it and the shocks or brakes, take it in for a pre-purchase inspection. That's what those guys are for. They'll do those things. They won't likely damage your car, but people like this likely will. Not the right thing to do for shopping for other people's cars, or conversely, if somebody's looking at your car, don't let them get carried away. That's kind of ridiculous. So the next guy that shows up in a Ferrari 488. This is about a week ago. He shows up out of the blue, almost unannounced. He texts me, hey, can I see the car? Boom, bang. And he was here within a couple of days. And then he shows up and flexing in a 488. Now, of course, as you know, if you know 488s, you know you're in the several hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you could probably get 2 or 3 of these for the price of a 488 Ferrari. But here's a middle-aged guy that I've seen him before. I know he's a general manager at a local luxury car lot. And I feel like he's just trying to build inventory, so he's shopping for low-cost cars that he can put on his lot. Even though there seemed to be a little bit of a story behind it, like I'm buying it for somebody that he was with. There was a passenger in the car that came with him, but I feel that it was more likely actually a result of possibly just trying to fill a lot. And the other thing is, of course, if I can advise you guys, have all your paperwork in order, because whether they ask for it right then and there or whether they ask for it closer to the final transaction, always have your service paperwork and a clean bill of health in terms of a clean Carfax car proof are going to go a long ways in terms of closing on the sale. So definitely want to have all that paperwork ready so it doesn't leave a whole lot of guessing and room for negotiation. But at the end of the day, we couldn't come together and actually make a deal. We couldn't agree, and he basically sailed off into the sunset, probably bought something else. And I haven't seen or heard from him again. Then there was a third gentleman that showed up here later this week. Actually, I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday. Showed up, young guy, showed up in an Audi. Great guy, actually. We ended up having a long conversation about cars in general. And the more we discussed it, it was funny because it sounds like he was down on some rallies, had some conversations, and hung out a little bit with DDE, Dave and Damon from Daily Driven Exotics. So he hung out with those boys for a while at a rally down in the US there a couple of years back. So we had a lot of conversation around that. We had some good conversation about supercars and good, bad, and it turned actually into be more of a storytelling experience. Now, he did look at the car. He did seem kind of interested, but again, as always, people shop around, so I guess time will tell. Now there's another guy, and he's down from BC. Now, I'm in Edmonton. BC, or specifically Vancouver, is on the coast. That's about a 12-hour drive away. Of course, with all these restrictions going on now too, there's limits and difficulties in getting from across borders. But this individual's reached out to me. We've had numerous conversations back and forth, sharing videos, clips of the car, sharing all the paperwork and the history on the car. And so it seems like he's pretty interested. However, we're still having to wait. Sounds like he's got some other contingencies he's trying to work out, like a sale of a home, and then he can make a move. But basically, so far, nothing. There's a lot of tire kickers, and there's only the 3 guys that came in person to see my car. Now, last year, I had tried to list the car as well for a couple of weeks during the middle of the summer, and I actually had somebody come up from Calgary, so down about 3 hours south of us, and he talked the talk and walked the walk. But at the end of the day, he claimed, yeah, he was ready to go, and he just vanished into thin air. Never heard from him again. So again, a lot of people say what they will. The difference is, I let him drive the car mistakenly. I won't let that happen again. So if somebody's coming to shop for your exotic, don't even bother letting, I mean, people are trying to pilot your car all the time. Why not? They'd sell you some song and dance, make up some goofy story. But I'll tell you right now, people want to drive these cars. And if they can do it for free without having to spend a dime, why not? And then they'll just walk away. So if I've learned anything from this, yeah, no, they ride along, if at all. If you want to give them a drive, that's fine. You know, you show them that way. But I've learned, yeah, I'll take them for a spin, but they're definitely not going to drive my car until there's some money on the table. So one thing before you sell these cars is, I'll warn you, is that typically buyers are very particular, so you definitely want to make sure all the maintenance is up to date. Of course, I've got the recall done. I just put a new clutch in here, oil service, and there's a whole bunch of other things that I've got done to the car. So it should be good to go that way. And for those particular buyers, that's a good thing to have under your belt. And you definitely want the service paperwork because they all ask for that. But one thing I notice when buyers are coming in and they want to sit in the car, and they open the door and they sit in the bolster. Well, the bolsters on these cars wear very quickly and easily on these Lambos. It's just the style of leather, and of course the bolsters stick out quite far. So what ends up happening, somebody gets in a little bit careless and they rub across that bolster and they just keep flexing that bolster in. Well, that just wrinkles and scratches and scrapes the bolsters up, and ultimately it causes a little bit of deterioration, wear and tear every single time if you don't get in the right way. How I like to get into these cars is a special way. Instead of just sliding across and sliding right into the seat like most typical cars or trucks, there's a different way that I typically have to get into the Lambo to make sure that I minimize the wear on the bolsters. So I slide in like this and then lift up and over, just like that. So if you get in the right habit of getting in these cars properly, if you treat the leather right and you do the conditioning on the leather, you'll have no problems. I mean, if you look around, my car shows very, very well. I mean, this car has 43,000 kilometers on it right now, and the bolsters are in okay shape. There's a little bit of creasing and crinkling, and if you look down here, same thing, just very mild little subtle creasing. And overall, it actually wears very, very well if you take care of it. Also use a lot of leather conditioner in there. You'll notice while we're at it, we've got the e-gear. So this is a single automated manual. As I said, I just did a clutch because these cars burn through clutches a little faster than most cars because it's a small diameter clutch disc, high revs, and the design of the e-gear slips at lots when it's engaging. So it's just, these cars do eat clutches quite quickly. Now, if you pan around, you'll notice this is a 2005, so it has the badge right there. If you have a 2004, you'll not have this. It'll just be embossed. And so because it's an 05, you have this. Because it's an 05, you also have the front nose lift like I have right here. That's a great feature to have. And that's something that we're telling the customers when people are shopping for it. Right here, this is kind of old school. If you look, you've got a CD player and you've got a cassette. Look, what is this nonsense? But anyway, got all of that hardware there. The newer cars, if you get like a, say an 06 or newer, then you'll basically have the full screen, and it's not the latest and the greatest by any means, but it's better than what you're seeing here. But either way, it's all original OEM equipment, and I'd rather leave it that way. So everything's super clean. I was thinking maybe doing some carbon fiber possibly in the console, maybe do some carbon fiber on the handles here, we'll see. But, you know, that's the look, right? Otherwise, it's leather all the way around. You got leather on here, leather all the way top and bottom. Even down here is all leather. This is all leather interior, leather piece, leather. I mean, everything in this car is pretty much leather. And even up here, this is all Alcantara. So these cars are generally very, very nicely spec'd. They're not by any means bare bones. I mean, they have a lot of the nice amenities, and this car smells like a Gucci purse inside. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. So at the end of the day, take care of the car and it will take care of you. And when it comes time to sell, it will show better, it'll run better, you'll have records for it, and it'll just work for whether you keep it or whether you sell it to the next owner. Guaranteed it'll go far if you take care of it, if you maintain it. That's what I've always typically done. I've kept the car clean. It's always hidden in a garage, so it's out of the sunlight, and I clean the leather, I do the maintenance, and I keep the records. So this is the most important things with these cars if you want them to be worth much at the end of a term. But I want to show you some of the places that I spent some money on this car and what that all looks like. And at the end, I'll basically have the whole tally for you and what that looks like on an annual basis. So first thing that I did was the 2B muffler. Now I left the original cats in here, so I didn't do a cat bypass or straight pipe it because even though it'll shoot flames and make all kinds of great noises, there's problems with potential O2 sensor faults. You'll get codes spitting out on the dashboard, and I don't want any of that. So I left the original cats and O2s in place, and all I did was I swapped out the 2B muffler from the original OEM muffler. So it sounds a little bit better, it's got a nicer tone, a little bit louder, but it's not obnoxious, and still I don't have any engine lights on the dash as a result of that. So I did that. That's a couple of grand. That cost me. Another thing, when I bought the car, the previous owner did a rough job of doing something. He tried to paint the wheels or plaster dip them or something, and it made a real mess of them. So I took these in, had them professionally powder coated by a guy here locally in Edmonton. Did an amazing job. Like, they looked absolutely spectacular. So they're a little dusty from brake dust right now, but they look really great when they're all shined up. So to get my 4 wheels all done, about another $1,000 to get the 4 wheels all powder coated and polished up. And he even remounted the tires for me because he had a tire machine. Then I also did the expel, so I added a bunch of film on there, paint protection film, PPF. So I did it on the rocker, as you can see down here. All that's protected because this area is susceptible to getting stones. I also put a strip of PPF right here. This leading edge can take a hit. I also did, there's paint protection film there, paint protection film on the entire fenders, both sides, paint protection film here, as well as PPF on the front nose. So the whole front blast zone of the car is upgraded with paint protection film. And as a result, that cost me about another $1,000 in material to get that all done. So those were basically free of charge other than some of the material. And same thing here, I did this Lamborghini decal up there. More or less my cost. I did that, printed that on the printer, and I got that printed off. So basically just my time and material. Okay, so let's do the breakdown of cost. So basically, the wheels, they cost me about $1,000. The 2B muffler was about 2 grand. The paint protection film was about another $1,000. Then recently my big bill, which was a new clutch, it had a clutch, flywheel, release bearing, relay, as well as the accumulator, did all of that, plus an oil service, and they did the power steering recall. That was free, but that last bill was about $11,000. Now when I first bought the car, so basically did the fuel filters, did the air filters, did the differential fluid change, we changed that out, cleaned out the screen, did an oil service, and all of that cost me $1 grand. Then every year since then, I've done a yearly oil service with labor and materials, about $250 a year. For the remaining years, that puts another $1,000 or so. So in total, this car has cost me 17 grand to the tune of almost $2,900 on average running total. If you average it out over the last 6 years, about close to $3,000 per year is what I would say you can expect. Now, in another 5 or 6, 7 years, maybe you'll do a clutch again. And so it always resets and averages out. You're never going to get away scot-free. These cars are not super cheap to maintain, although $3 grand a year is not bad. I mean, you can spend more than that on a BMW 335 with the N54 because that thing's constantly pissing out coolant and oil. So these cars are actually not too bad. But generally, that's what it cost me to run my Lambo for the last 6 years. So at the end of the day, guys, should I keep forging ahead, try to sell the car, push, push, push until it eventually sells? Or should I just hold on to it and make a nice project out of it? Because there's a lot of things that I could certainly do to really clean up the looks. I could lower it. I was thinking about doing the rear-wheel drive conversion, carbon fiber. Like I said, there's a lot of little things that you can really add up, maybe with the wing on there, can make this car look really spanky. Let me know, you guys, in the comment section below. Love to hear what you think. Project or sell it? Let me know. Hope to see you guys next time. Catch you real soon. Bye-bye.